Marching and calling for peace is hardly the definition of a hate march, I would have thought. And this is pretty well what both Humza Yousaf and now Gary Lineker have said in very clear statements published in the media today. Both of them have said that, calling, urging the police to stop the march on Saturday is an affront to our democratic freedoms. Now, I personally think two extra points. I personally think that marching, though I think it confirms people's solidarity and must be very reassuring to see the numbers, does very little to influence the policy that dictates what's going on. It does very little to influence current politicians because there's nothing particularly striking about it. The march was very much a feature of 19th century, 20th century protest, and there are other ways of engineering debate today, and I think the march has had its day, particularly because so much legislation and so much effort has been put in by both government and police to curtail the efficacious nature of a march. A march is not going to change the way things are being done. I think, however, there are ways of getting voices out and of targeting very specific points. I think simply sloganizing is again not beneficial because it is met by slogans in their part by our governments and by other governments around the world. So sloganizing and marches, I don't think work. I'm really sorry about that. However, it doesn't mean I don't think that people should curtail their democratic right to go on a march and to make their feelings heard and to align with other people who share their feelings. I think there should be a careful use of slogans. Those that are offensive should be avoided, and probably more than avoided, they should be the people who are marching should go out of their way not to cause other people distress. It is perfectly possible to have two simultaneous marches in the capital at the same time. That's the nature of something which is simultaneous, and I see no problem with that. And it is interesting to record the size of marches, but I think that's about as far as it goes. That's point one. And point two, I don't think there's any point in calling at this stage for a ceasefire because I don't think Israel is in a position or desires to provide a ceasefire. I think there are things that we can call for. I think there are things that we can target, campaigns maybe on social media, maybe more direct campaigns, writing to Israeli ministers and so on. We can effect change, but by very carefully targeted demands and requests and the force of a clear campaign rather than a campaign which is dominated by vague slogans. What does a ceasefire mean anyway? I think a humanitarian pause is significantly more likely, and therefore something that we should put our back into demanding. But I think more than that, we should be asking for the gates of Gaza to be opened up so that refugees can be accepted by Israel. We should be putting pressure on Hamas to explain why they've got so many tunnels and why they aren't inviting their citizens to join them in the tunnels to shelter from the bombs, why they didn't spend their time, indeed, one could ask, why they didn't spend their time in the build-up to this invasion and to their attack on the 7th of October in preparing shelters for the civilian population. The spokesperson who gave an interview on RT, a television channel I shouldn't be looking at, said in Arabic that they didn't feel any need to do that. The underground tunnel system, which on RT was described as being 500 miles long, is for their protection, not for the protection of their civilians. So I'm afraid Hamas have made it absolutely clear they're not there to protect the civilian population. They're there to fight an ideological battle and, if necessary, die. I must say I would not like to be a member of the Hamas civilian population with a government that rules with that spirit. That's quite frightening, and it's one of a number of revelations which has come out through particularly Russian media. And I think even supporting the Palestinians, we should be asking these fundamental questions. Why is Hamas not providing shelter for the civilian population? And what is the best way of providing help for Palestinians? Giving money to Hamas is, of course, completely absurd. How can we give aid? How can we give support to the Palestinians? We must ask those practical questions rather than join in with these vague, utopian and meaningless slogans. And as for from the river to the sea, number one, that comes with a lot of baggage from the PLO and then from Hamas, and a lot of it is interpreted as meaning the eradication of Israel. And number two, it has also been appropriated by the hard right in Israel of the Likud party and subverted to mean the complete control by Israel from the river to the sea. It's not a slogan that should be used by anybody. We should avoid it like the plague. It's not a meaningful slogan. It's a slogan which doesn't mean what it says. And like the Black Lives Matter problem, it's that slogan again does not quite mean what it says. And you have to be very careful. And I think the people who are aimlessly chanting that slogan have perhaps not recognized a full distinction between Palestinians and Hamas, or between Hamas and the Qasim brigades and the various other terrorist units active in Gaza at the moment, and indeed supported by Hezbollah and by other terrorist units outside Israel. It's the vagueness which is the problem. But there we are, just a few thoughts as we go into the new week.